there's obviously a lot of nuance in there that I've skimmed over there, but that's the crux of it. Wales were well beaten, and you'd be reluctant to single out any particular facets of the game, to be honest.
Would you go along with that, Andy?
Yeah, by and large, though I think Matt there now, it's a bit of doom and gloom, isn't it? Listening to all that, it sounds like it's a right old crisis. I don't think it's that bad, because Ireland are one of the better teams in the world. I thought it was quite a riveting test match. Actually, it wasn't a lot in it. If Parks' try, if he got the ball down, it'd been awarded. Wales were right in that game then, and might have done enough to pinch it. However, they have got this is an issue with the scrum, which has got to be solved really, because it offers the opposition a get out of jail card.
The scrum was solid though, wasn't it? It was quite decent up until the key moments in the
but I think it tired.
I
think it tired. Plus, Ireland had good props on the bench, really good props. Andrew Porter's hell of a scrummager, and Dave Kilcoy's no mug either. And I think they came on and, if anything, might have strengthened the Irish scrum, and the Welsh lads perhaps run out of a bit of puff. But there's certainly an area Wales have got to sort out. There's been an issue. It's been masked really over the last few years. Wales have had an issue with tight head prop. Thomas fancies, he did a good job in last year's Six Nations. And largely during the World Cup, though you could argue that the scrum was one of the reasons why Wales went out of the World Cup in the semi-final against South Africa, because Springboks had an edge as well. They'd been desperate for someone to come through and grab that number 3 jersey.
Is it just not a case Wales just haven't got the players? It's not a case of they need to get the scrum right. They haven't got. Who do they bring in? Leon Brown is a player with potential, but scrummaging right now not seen as one of his strong points. Wilgriff John is in the squad, but we haven't seen much of him. Whether his fitness levels are up to international rugby at this stage, we don't really know.
Well, Dylan and Liam Brown, I think they're the same age group. They play for both in the same Wales under 20 squad, the same age. They both work in progress. They're going to get better and better if you've got to either persevere with them or use them more off the bench. But you've got to have someone perhaps who's more mature, like your Thomas Francis, to hold the jersey down perhaps in the meantime as they continue their development. France got a bit of the same issue as well, because they're playing young props, and their scrum is work in progress as well. Wilgriff John, is he up to it at international level? We don't know, because we haven't seen him. Is he fit enough to play international rugby? Because he hasn't started that much really for Sale Sharks this season. The questions that's got to be addressed by Wayne Pivot and his forwards coach Jonathan Humphreys.
Yeah, and the other big thing that I know you picked up particularly in the last couple of days is the defence, which seemed to be all at sea at particular points. The wingers very exposed, left high and dry, I think is how you described it to me yesterday.
That was the phrase, yeah. Again, similar discussion. George North is the centre of the criticism. Feel he's been scapegoated a little because Ireland had joy on both sides of the field. Let's face it, Halfpenny, McNichol also found themselves very exposed at times, but it was a result of things that were going on inside them. As I touched on earlier, Johnny Sexton was using his dummy runners expertly. The Welsh midfield was all at sea at times defensively, and the wingers and the fullback were left at times on their own defending half the field and 3 Irish attackers. Jordan Lama coming into the line in that wide channel couldn't believe his luck. Similarly, Stockdale and Andrew Conway as well. If a winger or an outside back finds themselves in that situation, it's usually not their fault. It's because something's gone wrong inside. The defence wasn't there inside. There was no support coming from inside, and the players were, like I said earlier, must have been just left thinking, what am I supposed to do with this? We've got some of the most dangerous attackers in European rugby coming down their channel, and they've got to defend 25-30 metres worth of space. It's it was a result of problems that were happening elsewhere for me.
Well, it started as a breakdown because the problem was that Ireland were getting such a quick ball. They were clearing the ruck so quickly, getting the ball out. Wales were backpedaling in defence, reminded me to some degree like Wales in New Zealand 2016. Same thing was happening, and New Zealand run Wales absolutely ragged because they were on the front foot and they had time and space on the ball and the pace of their attackers. So it is very difficult when you're going backwards, and that meant, of course, that Wales forwards weren't able to fan so much. So Wales were short of numbers. I think Wales did employ actually the right tactic and defensively when you're up against that, because they shuffled their defence a bit, and the winger came in to take Lamore, the full back, which meant it was more or less a one-on-one out wide, and Wales actually scrambled quite well and they kept them out of those areas. But it's difficult when you're going backwards and you're up against good players, and Sexton knows what he's doing. I think we've got to give Ireland a bit of credit. Under their new coach Andy Farrell, they seem to have adopted a more expansive game plan.
On that though, isn't it, you touched on it earlier, it's not necessarily doomsday at the moment because they're easy fixes. Wales got it wrong in the first half defensively. They couldn't fix the problems at half time, but we've got to remember it's a new coaching regime. They're feeling their way through this. You've got a new outside centre in there, which we all know is pivotal in terms of defence, communication, shutting off that outside channel. So there's a lot of things that can be fixed quite quickly here. Ireland weren't doing anything particularly intricate, but they got a lot of joy from it. So there are a few easy fixes. As concerning as it looked, I don't think it will take them long to put it right.
You can't. It's not that easy though to shut off an outside channel. It doesn't matter who you are in the centre if you're going backwards. Yeah. Your background ain't got space, because back that tour in New Zealand 2016, Jonathan Davis had the run round there. Yeah, he's pivotal to Wales's defence. So not that Nick Tompkins obviously was just his second international. He's working in progress, and he's going to take him a bit of time. Just because of that at the weekend, I don't think you should ditch him.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, now Wayne Pivac was pretty honest in his assessment of the match when he spoke at his press conference. Here's what he had to say after the game.
Look, I think if you look at the first half, I think we didn't have enough ball or territory. I think it was about 70-30 in possession, and I think it was about 60 odd in territory that they had as well. So, looking at it from a defensive point of view, I thought we scrambled well. I thought we showed them the edges a couple of times, which is something we'll have to work on. But certainly going into the change room at 12-7. We felt that if we continue to work hard in defence, but then got that some territory ourselves and some possession, that we could turn the game around. Clearly we didn't start as well as we would have liked after half-time. We were inaccuracies in their 22 and we let them off the hook a couple of times. So I think the difference was when they got down there, they were very accurate and they scored the tries that we weren't able to.
Pivac there talking about some of the errors. I mean, there were a lot of errors, and I think he actually said in that press conference there were some really unacceptable errors in the game. Is there a problem with Wales' skill set then generally? Because he seems to have mentioned that a couple of times, just the basic skill levels. Are these players good enough right now to play the type of game that he wants to?
Yeah, it's interesting because I had a tweet last night from a punter asking if Johnny McNichol or George North are more suited to the style of play that Pivac wants to employ. Now, it's not quite as simple as that at international level, because you wouldn't ask Johnny McNichol and George North to do the same jobs because they've got totally different skill sets. And at international level, you've almost got to pick a game plan that suits your best players rather than telling your best players to fit your game plan.
That's what Gatland always said he did, didn't he?
Exactly, yeah. And Warren Gatland spent a lot of, probably the last 4 years of his tenure, talking a lot about skill sets and getting tight five forwards to evolve and get more comfortable on the ball as a result of that 2016 tour that Andy was on about, because they realised down there that all the New Zealand tight five forwards were able to offload, throw out the tackle, link up with the backs. So they've worked a lot on, you look at Alan Wynne-Jones on the weekend, offloading out the tackle to Dan Biggar, sets up a try. So those are skills that have been worked on for years. It's not something, a Welsh coach finding issues with particular skill sets is not something new. This has been a work in progress for a while. So, as we've touched on, Wayne Pivac's bringing a style of play that he wants to employ. Players are going to have to get used to that, and part of that process is learning different skills and becoming more comfortable in different areas of the field. However, it does. We're only 2 competitive games into this regime, so we're not in the realms of sweeping statements yet. So we're not going to start condemning the way that Wales are trying to play the game. I think there was 8 handling errors or something like that.
Yeah.
And a load of offloads in there, which is something we haven't really seen from Wales before. So they're clearly trying to change things, but it's just one of those things that's going to take a little bit of time. And I think you've got to be careful of what you're asking certain players to do.
Time will determine whether Wales have got the players suited to that style of game. The secret of coaching at any level in rugby is you form a game plan which suits the players you've got at your disposal. If you've got a fantastic pack, you play to your pack. If you've got good backs, you play to your backs. With Wales, it does concern me about Welsh rugby. What it produces is there's a lot of emphasis on the size of players, physicality, work in the gym and all, and I don't think the skill level across the board in Welsh rugby is that good anyway, and I think it is something that needs working on, but that could take years to come through. I saw you see it at the under 20 level now. Skills are not great. Ireland under 20s were playing a different sort of game to Wales, looking for space and contact, whereas Wales are looking more for contact. Pivot had success at the Scarlets by employing that multi-skill game, but international rugby is a massive step up from that level. You're up against the top players, bigger players, probably physically better defenders, so that game has got to be absolutely spot on to play it, which it was for the Wales try at the weekend.
Yeah.
But there were instances not. So it's a difficult, fingertip passing is a difficult game to play at this level. Gatland, he had his game plan, which is the so-called Warren ball, which is suited the players he's got. He's now back with the Chiefs in New Zealand. They play a different type of rugby to what Wales did, because he's got skilled players there who can play that sort of wider game.
Yeah.
So it's all about owning your resources.
Okay, let's leave it there for a second and get a few comments first and then some questions. David Hughes just saying on Facebook, if Parks was given the try, the game would have gone Wales' way, he says. It's all about confidence. It certainly was a big turning point. That was a big moment, around then, absolutely. Jerry says, disappointing to see Tompkins get bounced off tackles too easily, but the guy deserves another chance. Probably echoing what you were saying there.
What disappointed me with Tompkins is we never saw his passing game, which we saw against Italy, which was so good. Wales actually did play some Warren ball because they had to use Parks, because they were under a bit of pressure. They had to use Parks on that crash ball a lot.
It never got past Parks, really, did it? You didn't see Tompkins, North, McNichol, really.
So what impressed me with Tompkins about Italy, about straightening and passing, we didn't see that in this game, unfortunately.
Couple here on Gareth Davis with differing points of view. Barry says, should Gareth Davis start at scrum half as he changed the tempo when he came on? But somebody else saying how poor they thought Gareth Davis was and how ponderous he was when he came on. That shows you the different perspectives people
have. Rugby, innit?
But can have on a game. What did you make of Thomas and Gareth?
Thomas Williams made some unforced errors. He was also he's a player I rate highly. I think he's got a big future, but he's got to work on his defence. Saw that at the World Cup in the semi-final when South Africa scored a try. He was one of the ones they went through. Saw at the weekend after Tompkins missed Lamore, he went through Thomas as well quite easy. And then the most alarming one of all, when I say alarming, it was just one of those things, but it shouldn't happen at this level, is when he dropped the ball from the line out when Ireland Wyn-Jones gave it to him in the basket, really, which gave Ireland a scrum which they scored from. You can't make that sort of unforced errors at this level, though it does happen, because if you look at England against France, Owen Farrell and Mario Toji made errors you've never seen him make in that game, so please, that can happen. I thought Gareth Davis, when he came on, I think he was a bit ponderous, and I thought he was looking around a bit much. And when Wales were heavily on attack just before they had the scrum, where Dylan Lewis was penalised, chose to go himself when Ireland had him well marked up when he was on to move the ball. I think myself that Rhys Webber's got to come into the equation.
I think we've got to be careful with the scrum halves here, just because of what Andy's touched on earlier. The breakdown was a total mess. Ireland won it. The ball was really clean. It was really fast. We've seen other analysis of this game where people are saying Ireland were on the ball pushed it as far as they could with Roman Pat, and that slowed down the Welsh attack and let the Irish guys realign. So I think we've got to be careful with our criticism of the scrum half, notwithstanding, as Andy's pointed out, the individual errors.
Some of that mind at the Ruxall comes down to ball presentation, where you lay the ball back. If you go in too far, that means the opposition can slow it down. If you've got good presentation like Southern Hemisphere teams do, running for the ball back a yard, it's a lot easier to get quick ball.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, another one here from Ben Evans, who says Shingler and Corey Hill need to come in if we're going to play this offloading game. They're also great line-out technicians. He also mentions Owen Williams at 12 as an option. Obviously he was injured in the warm-up because he was on the bench, of course, for the game. First of all, really quickly, Matt, on the Shingler and Hill, makes sense, doesn't it? They're good ball players, athletic. People that seem to fit.
Hill is one of Wales' best players. If he's fit, he's got to play.
You said he was better than Alan Jones.
Well, I stand by that. For the type of game they want to play. Alan Wyn-Jones was excellent at the weekend, so you have a partnership. You have a partnership with Hill and Alan Wyn-Jones. Been successful. They're both leaders.
What about there was two injuries from the game on the weekend. We saw Dan Biggar go off his third head injury in the space of 5 or 6 months. That's concerning. Obviously Josh Adams, who's been Wales' best player for some time, went off with a hip injury. We don't know how serious they are, but if they are both out of the France game, what happens then? Who replaces them? I
think fly half, you got to back Jared Evans, really. I thought he was good when he came on. That was a big test for him. out there in that sort of the way the game was set up as well.
Yeah.
I thought he looked pretty good. So I would put faith in him. I know Owen Williams was supposed to be on the bench, but he was there more for his versatility.
Yeah.
I think if it comes down to a straight shootout between who's the better fly half, I think...
Don't forget as well, he had an hamstring injury in that warm-up of some sort, so you know that it doesn't matter if it's just a minor one, that could keep him up.
Yeah, so I think you've got to put your faith in Jared Evans to come in for Dan Biggar and give him the
Jared Evans, he played 38 minutes I think in that second half. He did quite well really, and he wasn't exposed defensively or anything, so go with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the if Adams is out, I suppose it just means we don't have to have the McNichol George North,
which may be music to some people.
Well, I think
music to my ears.
I think Wales missed a trick by not picking Reece Ahmed.
Oh, a
against
curveball!
Italy. Well, they should have picked him for that game and had a look at him if he was up there.
Well, the reasons were that he hadn't been there enough. They felt,
but
he'd
they
come in
use
with
that.
a bit of a knock and knee and stuff.
Yeah, Dan Biggar hasn't been there that much either.
Hang
He's
on.
back with Northampton.
Oh no,
Yeah,
Dan Biggar's been in that
But
set for a long time.
What I'm saying is you can use that argument for whatever situation you want, can't you?
Would you
It's up
like to see Lewis Rees-Zammit start against France? Is that what you're saying?
No, I would have liked to see him start against.
Well, that's gone though.
Yeah, I know. They should have started then, and then they could have formed a proper judgment of him by playing him in a match.
Home against France, that's not a bad game.
Well, why
to throw him in, is
not?
it?
Well, I would pick him if I thought he was up to it. Yeah, they're more likely, I reckon, not to go with Adams. Certainly, in Wales missed him usually after he went off. He won all night long, but he made a big impact off a very limited ball.
Yeah.
And, you know, he would have spread some fear in Irish ranks as well. He's that good. He's one of the best wingers in the world at the moment.
Yeah, great play. Okay. Let's finish then with a question that actually came before all the weekend's actions. What do you think about South Africa joining the Six Nations, asked Dave? So this was a story that broke quite late on Friday night, the back page of the Daily Mail. Let me finish before
Sorry,
you jump
John.
in.
Keen on this one, John.
The word being that talks are very much on course for South Africa to join the Six Nations. It would become the Seven Nations then, I suppose, in 2024 or thereabouts. That's a horrible thought, isn't it?
It certainly is, John, because Pat Mackin, like me now, I didn't realise South Africa was in Europe, because the Six Nations is supposed to be the European Championship, and South Africa is on the continent of Africa. So straight away, the only reason they want to come in, if they do, is for money. Because let's face facts, that from a rugby point of view, they play in a much better competition anyway, the Rugby Championship. There's been 9 World Cups and it's been won 8 times by Rugby Championship teams. So the only reason is about
it's
money.
not because competition that's struggling sort of financially and...
Well, that's what I mean. That's why they're only interested in the buck, aren't they? But, you know, if they come in, you can't expand the Six Nations to 7, that's to the detriment of regional and club rugby in Europe as well. And the English clubs are not going to allow this to happen, or the French clubs, for starters. And, you know, I think it'd be to the detriment of the Welsh regions as well. It's a ridiculous idea. South Africa, stay where you are, please. If they come in, you might as well bring in Argentina as well.
I mean, there's obviously the rugby purist in you that wants to leave it as it is, because the Six Nations, or Five Nations as it was, has always been a great championship. And, you know, the Tri-Nations, now the Rugby Championship, has always had its moments in the sun and, you know, in the summer months as well. So there's a lot of all that emotional attachment to it as well, but there's also talk now that if they come into the tournament, it will remain as it is with a 7-week block. So we're now talking about 6 test matches in 7 weeks. There's a player welfare aspect here. You know, you're not flying to Dublin, you're flying to South Africa, which is a long way away. So, you know, you've got to consider all that. You've got to think about the fans as well, getting over there. It's not going to be as cheap to get over to South Africa as it is to get to Edinburgh, for example. So there's a number of factors there's a number of barriers that this has to overcome before it's even a possibility. So, you know, and there's also, you know, you're seeing people in New Zealand, you know, New Zealand rugby chiefs saying now that they're very sceptical about the chances of this coming off. So, you know, I wouldn't like to see it, and, you know, like I said, there's a lot of obstacles to overcome before this becomes reality.
Okay, thank you, chaps. We'll leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us. As always, thanks for all your comments and questions. We'll be back again, same time, same place, and we'll see you then. Take care.